My name is R. Crosby Lyles, and this is News from the Can. These are the bullets. 1. Climate change is inevitable. 2. Planetary shifts in weather patterns, including sea level rise, catastrophic precipitation, wind events, and unknown changes in the amount of cloud cover threaten the integrity of renewable sources of energy like windmills, solar panels, and solar collectors. 3. Meltdowns at Fukushima, Chernobyl, and 3 Mile Island have stained the public image of nuclear power to the point that it's simply not an option in the minds of many people. 4. Thorium reactors are esteemed by an increasing number of people to be a third-way option in the decarbonization of future energy production. 5. Robust and reliable power is crucial to survival in a catastrophe, let alone a global one. 6. Catastrophe of one kind or another is not only certain, but ongoing somewhere around the globe at all times. 7. Fukushima, Chernobyl, and 3 Mile Island all had one thing in common. They were either run, built, or maintained by assholes. 3 Mile Island had, quote, ambiguous control room indicators and, quote, inadequate training, end quote. Chernobyl was operated by a madman deliberately outside safe operational parameters, and, in the case of Fukushima, quote, Tokyo Electric Power Company, TEPCO, had failed to meet basic safety requirements, end quote, and that's all from Wikipedia. 8. Thorium reactors are breeder reactors. Thorium reactors are breeder reactors that produce a mixture of U-233 with a trace of U-232 that is not only highly radioactive with intense gamma radiation, but under certain conditions prone to unexpected criticalities. In other words, zero tolerance for being run, built, or maintained incompetently by assholes. 9. Research has been underway for decades on a vast number of feasible nuclear technologies, from nuclear batteries that harvest beta decay particles to liquid metal-cooled fast reactors to molten salt reactors. However, many of them have complexities that may inhibit widespread adoption. 10. We believe that modular nuclear power plants as produced by companies like NuScale, Bill Gates' TerraPower, Westinghouse, or any number of other companies are the most rapidly adoptable because of the feasibility associated with scalability and idiot-resistant manufacturing operations and maintenance. 11. Modular nuclear power plants appear to be the safest, most robust system when the shit is really hitting the fan. In other words, these systems seem to have the best chance of staying online and not producing collateral damage from a meltdown in the event of catastrophic wind waves, earthquake, and other end-of-the-world type of scenarios. 12. Recycling air, water, and waste materials in a self-sustaining protective environment requires the highest energy density fuel possible for long-term survival of humans and other species in the event of an extinction-level cataclysm like a supervolcano, asteroid strike, or nuclear war. The bottom line is uranium, thorium, and plutonium are the most energy-dense substances on the planet in that order. In fact, these fuels eclipse the energy density of every other fuel in the world by 8 or 9 orders of magnitude. That means uranium, for example, has approximately 69 million times the energy density of natural gas. Holy shit. The nice thing about downblending fuel from decommissioned nuclear warheads for use in modular nuclear power generation is that we've already expended the energy to separate and enrich the fissile material. The only thing is, according to Dr. Nick Touran at whatisnuclear.com, making the fuel assemblies can be energy intensive, which is a selling point for liquid fuel molten salt reactors that don't require the entire constellation of accoutrements needed for solid fuel. Besides the thorium-fueled variety, some molten salt reactors are even designed to burn leftover radioactive waste, which is fabulous, but may require a higher level of competence for the operators, meaning not run by assholes. Modular design idiot-proofs maintenance at the power plant level because the entire reactor is sealed in a shippable can. Note, Bill Gates' TerraPower LLC, who also employs Dr. Touran, is reportedly developing modular molten salt type reactors among other cutting-edge designs. So the modular concept is being explored across the spectrum of nuclear technologies. These designs make the technology safer by simplifying maintenance and operations and limiting the size and scope of potential failures. Smaller fires are easier to manage. As a result, NuScale, for example, boasts that their safety zone terminates at the plant boundary, about 40 acres, as compared to a 10-mile radius or 200,000 acres for a conventional nuclear power plant. The scalability also makes it easier to adopt, tweak, and get going in the shortest amount of time. The problem with thorium. Thorium reactors are breeder reactors. When thorium-232 captures a neutron, it transmutes into uranium-233 by way of protactinium-233, which, in a molten salt reactor, must be extracted so that it may decay into U-233 before absorbing another neutron, becoming a less desirable transuranic and poisoning the reactor. On a much smaller scale, the impurity U-232 comes by way of several steps through protactinium-231 and protactinium-232 when thorium-230 captures a neutron. Thus, uranium-233 can be isolated from U-232 chemically during the protactinium phase because of the difference in the amount of time it takes for the various isotopes to transmute. In any case, according to Oak Ridge National Lab's review of thorium fuel reprocessing experience, when tons of thorium are irradiated with neutrons, kilograms of U-233 are produced, with parts per million of U-232 as an impurity. Then, quote, the decay chain of 232U quickly yields strong gamma radiation emitters, the thallium-208 being the strongest at 2.6 mega-electron volts, end quote, and that quote is from Wikipedia. Once mixed, the separation of U-232 from U-233 is very difficult because of the closeness and mass of the two isotopes. Regardless of whether or not U-233 can be separated, at least one of the transmuted products of exposing thorium to neutrons emits extremely penetrating gamma rays. Though the half-life of those products is relatively short, 86-ish years, the gamma radiation produced is extremely penetrating, hard to shield against, and highly ionizing. The presence of U-232 impurity in the mix can be beneficial in the sense that it's harder to weaponize because of the intense gamma rays, but also U-232 creates instability that could cause premature cook-offs of any nuclear weapons that might somehow be made. So sudden criticalities of high densities of the material is harder to predict. This has grave bearing on safety considering the greatest enemy of all nuclear operations. The same culprit responsible for Fukushima, Chernobyl, and more, which is, of course, the asshole. Thorium reactors would probably be great if it wasn't for the preponderance of assholes living everywhere on the planet. We're not trying to be funny here. This is a fact of life that is most true in third world countries that are rife with corruption at every level. Though he is a strong proponent of thorium nuclear technology overall, Nick Touran published a nice rebuttal to all the hype about thorium in his piece, Myths and Misconceptions About Thorium Nuclear Fuel, on whatisnuclear.com. Links are in the description. He goes on at length about what is involved in chemically separating protactinium-233 before it decays into uranium-233 and other fuel processing issues, which appear to have been costly enough to be termed expensive in most of what we have read so far. But he also points out that solid fuel assemblies can be expensive to make as well, whether from down-blended fuel for decommissioned nuclear bombs or not. All spent fuel must be reprocessed or buried somewhere, and it's all highly radioactive, whether it's U-232 or some other god-awful isotope. Not to mention all the beryllium, lithium, and fluoride used in FLIBE to modify the viscosity of this molten salt fuel. Most of these technical questions aren't as much to ask of professional first-world engineers as it is for third-world yak herders. Not to put too fine a point on it, but what is the possibility of a runaway nuclear reaction taking place in a pile of thorium laying around somewhere in a third-world supply chain? How the thorium reactor works and how radioactive some of the decay products can be has max fuck factor written all over it, which is probably why thorium is considered a controlled substance of the highest order because of its myriad potential misuses by idiots and goons worldwide. Side note, if David Hahn, the radioactive Boy Scout, had access to a few grams of pure thorium instead of lantern mantles along with his smoke detectors and hearing aid batteries, he might very well have killed himself along with his parents and a few unlucky souls who came along to investigate. From all accounts, Mr. Hahn appears to have simply been a curious person with no ill intent. He had, however, been diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia concurrent with an interview by the FBI for trying to build a second breeder reactor in his freezer before his untimely death in 2016, another victim of alcohol and fentanyl. He served in both the Navy and the Marine Corps, where he was honorably discharged for medical reasons. Rest in peace. There has been a massive PR push for thorium reactors around the world for decades now. India, well known for its apocalyptic history of industrial accidents, Bhopal's Union Carbide gas disaster come to mind, was reportedly going full steam ahead on thorium. That's largely because they have a lot of it. The latest news we have seen, though, is that their Kalpakkam reactor is a sodium-cooled fast breeder using U-238 instead of the originally planned thorium for fuel. India is reportedly planning to get 25% of their energy needs met from nuclear power by 2050. China is moving forward too for the same reason. They have rare earth metals up the ass. We have seen reports that India is actually ahead of China in fast breeder technology, but the Chinese have a tendency to play fast, loose, and close to the vest. So we won't be surprised to see stunning technological nuclear advancements coming out of nowhere in China in the relatively short term. Bill Gates was reportedly partnering with China on a miniature reactor as far back as 2015. Who knows what's up with that? They should be applauded, though, for doing something to move away from burning coal, the dirtiest, deadliest form of energy production there is. Considering that human error in the handling of large-scale production and use of thorium in such populous countries could produce a radioactive holocaust of biblical proportions, my conspiracy mind might normally make me think that somehow it's all a setup. But considering how long these countries have been researching the technology and openly talking about it while not actually doing it gives me hope that they may indeed be using ample caution. A lot of well-known, super-intelligent, capable people come from India. With over 1 billion people living in India, they probably have a population of geniuses the size of the United States. However, the same probability distribution that blessed them with so many gifted people has also cursed them with at least as many dumbasses. For example, this past week, India did manage to pepper the space around the ISS with debris by blowing up a satellite with a defensive missile. And this concurrent with Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi's re-election efforts. After all, the once anti-corruption, anti-bureaucracy candidate Modi is now known for using things like Hindu nationalism along with various and sundry forms of big dick politics to win elections. Considering that India is rife with corruption at every level, that neither India nor China are going to let on how advanced their reactors actually are, and that they are both serial dick measurers, all bets are probably off. Nevertheless, China and India are huge countries that require a lot of coal to power their surging economies. With the threat of climate change looming, entrenched carbon industries like coal, oil, and gas will do everything they can to keep the cash flow going for as long as they can, which could get ugly considering they are competing against a product with energy densities billions of times greater than that of any carbon fuel. It is painfully obvious that power from the nuclear fuel of your choice blows away burning anything else on the planet harvested at 100% efficiency by light years. And that's while being carbon neutral. Nuclear power essentially makes the pursuit of greater heat efficiency of other fuels almost seem comical. Except for the fact that nuclear power in the wrong hands has such a devastating and deadly potential. Yeah, so birth defects in your children's children is a bit sobering. Side note, wind turbines with power output as high as 9 megawatts actually exist in the world, with upgrades pushing to 10 megawatts installed by 2021. They are made by MHI Vestas and are reportedly very robust machines. Not to be outdone, GE will reportedly have 12 megawatt wind turbines ready to install around the same time. So that's a wrinkle in the renewable energy landscape that is hard to predict. Some wind farms have fared better than others in extreme hurricane force winds. The discussion about robustness of these systems again comes down to the competence of the operators and the corruptness of the local construction contractors. Bear in mind that corruption directly impacts things like the quality of finished concrete, the preparation of the foundation, maintenance, and operations. And that says nothing about the stability of power output when the wind is not blowing, or the fact that wind machines kill lots of migratory bats and endangered birds. Nevertheless, probably the main reason we haven't been getting all of our energy from nuclear power for decades is because we've been saturated with negative PR for 60 years or more. Half the horror sci-fi movies and many TV shows from the 50s to the 90s involved bad effects from radiation. It just seems like every reference to atomic energy during that time had a dark, dismal, negative connotation to it. But to be fair, the most prominent display of that kind of power, nuclear war, is pretty damn scary. Note that the movie The China Syndrome came out before the partial meltdown at 3 Mile Island. On top of that, bad press seemed to come with every minor mishap involving nuclear power, no matter what the context. If it bleeds, it leads. It has been stated many times across the blogosphere that if anyone in America knew, in real time, the level of nuclear devastation the Russians had subjected to their own people, just to manufacture some fuel, there probably wouldn't be a single reactor within the lower 48 contiguous United States. Without question, though, Chernobyl takes the cake as far as nightmare fuel for the nuclear power-related public relations business. How do you come back from very nearly destroying Europe? True, Madison Avenue can work miracles. Unfortunately, most of the madmen are probably all booked up working for the carbon industry. Needless to say, we've been scared away from nuclear power, rightly or wrongly, to the obvious benefit of the carbon business. Australian TV news agencies go on incessantly about Fukushima, while 32% of the coal on the world market comes from down under. Most of that going to East Asia. The few big scary meltdowns we have witnessed over the years, despite the hype, didn't kill that many people. Dirty coal is nearly genocidal in its environmental impacts. But it's the invisible killer aspect of radiation that probably scares us the most. People are still making hysterical YouTube videos about potential mystery effects from Fukushima 8 years and a lot of reconstruction later. Not very many people know that much about which radioisotopes are dangerous, how hard it is to get contaminated, or what our chances of being affected will be. The unknown leaves an enormous void ripe for the exploitation of nuclear fearmongers everywhere. That is, until now, when the radiation bugaboo meets climate change head-on. Now, not from any formal study, but just from personal experience, I have noticed that a lot of people I know are genuinely freaked out about climate change. If half of those people were able to really grok what I explained about energy density above, the carbon industry would be dead in 2 years. My conspiracy theory mind, however, thinks that the coal, oil, and gas industries are monsters who would love nothing better than a big, juicy nuclear accident. The PR boon associated with the horrible deaths of lots of people would go a long way to maintaining control of a tenuous energy market. And large-scale thorium power production in a densely populated place like India is made to order for just such a calamity. Maybe it's me, but I just happen to notice lately a flurry of videos about thorium on YouTube, PR Central. True enough, the conversation has been vigorous on and off for decades, but it does seem that this kind of advanced nuclear tech is gaining some momentum. Interesting to note, the extraordinary monetary and regulatory hurdles a company like NuScale or Bill Gates' TerraPower have had to get over just to apply to build a power plant have been reported by rags like The Guardian for years, but these stories just don't seem to get much oxygen. Proponents would be better off playing up the unfair harshness of nuclear regulations to new ideas than to go out of their way to gloss over the negative aspects of thorium. U-232, what's that? Never heard of it. All that with extraordinary emphasis on how safe it is. Even though thorium is a controlled radioactive substance that has enormous potential for radiological disaster. The only question is, how easy is it for thorium to go critical in one form or another somewhere along the supply chain? Is this remotely possible anywhere in the world? It may seem like a silly question considering stringent hazardous material rules in most places, but stranger things have happened. It's not the known risks that bother me as much as the unknowns in a largely corrupt and exponentially growing population. The bottom line is, A, we will need nuclear power in some safe and robust form to survive. B, thorium is not all blue skies and rainbows. And C, perfection may not just be the enemy of the good, but the enemy of life itself. And as always, there's nothing to fear but fear itself. There's always hope, and we will inevitably find our way. Life will go on. My name is R. Crosby Lyles, and this has been News from the Can. I love you guys. Thanks for all your incredible support. If you like this content, please drop us a like and subscribe. Thanks for watching. See you.